Welcome to Between Sundays. I'm Tyler, and we are choking on the smog of progress. Friend of the pod, you do not belong to the world any more than I do. Today, we're getting tech savvy and understanding how we might live in a digital revolution.
Please, Siri, I want some more.
But before we take the cocaine out of the cough syrup, now that they've started their own tech-free commune, let's welcome in our favorite co-hosts, Maron and Barry. Good day, guys.
Good day.
Good day.
Guys,
hey, we're
is-
back.
Good day.
Yay! It is so good to be back.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I can see you. We're on YouTube.
Oh.
Everybody can see you.
I mean, we've
okay.
always been able to see
gonna
one
say,
another.
yeah.
That's been part of this show.
7. We're
Season
back for season
7?
7 of Between Sundays.
We have not been keeping track of seasons, but we're going to start.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Every time one of us is gone for like an episode, I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, new season.
I thought it was like annual, like it just rolls over.
There are no
In
rules.
October,
There are no
we
rules.
started in October.
Yeah, no, a season could be like 2
Let's
episodes.
call it season like 42.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Yeah. Isn't that what like The Bachelor
Documentary
does?
Now.
Isn't that what like The Bachelor and
I have no idea.
American Idol and
Do
all
you ever
those
watch
shows?
Documentary Now?
Yeah.
Like Helen Mirren. She's
Yeah.
like,
Oh, what?
season 57.
Good luck.
All right. I'm sure there will be absolutely no more hiccups today. What friends of the pod don't know is that this is like we did a roughly 30-minute show before right now, and I forgot to hit the record button.
We're back.
Just like riding a bike, everybody. So yeah, we've been gone for about 13 months. We've had to take a break, but sermons happen every weekend, and they must be broken down. And so we are back, and we're going to be back for the long haul. If you've been a friend of the pod or you're a part of Grace Church, you know why we've needed to take that space. If you're not a friend of the pod, which I know a lot of people are not, or if you're not a part of Grace Church, which I know a lot of people are not, we are not going to talk about why we needed to take a break, but we will probably in the days and months ahead, just as we talk more about life. But we'll have more to say about that this season.
Season 52.
Yeah, but today's not the day, and today's not the day for a variety of reasons, and the biggest reason is that we're going to celebrate that we are now on YouTube.
We are on line.
We're on YouTube, everybody. So youtube.com/gracechurchin. You can find us. We're going to do a video recording of this every week, and you'll be able to like and subscribe all the shows there. And so,
Maron, I would love to know how you feel about being on video.
yeah.
So
Maron
great,
forgets
Barry.
that we're on video about every 4 minutes. About every 4 minutes, Maron's reminded that we're on video. What's wrong with being on video?
I'm not loving this. You've been wanting to be on video for some time now. You've been talking about it for
Digital
over
revolution.
A year.
Yeah.
Over a year. We actually used to be on that little Lego camera.
I remember during COVID,
We were
right?
like, when we were Facebook
Yeah, we would
Live.
Facebook stream.
Facebook Live.
But
That's
it
right.
was like far away, you know?
Yeah.
And so I still felt like I could show
It was
up
up
to
in your
work
face.
in like pajamas, you know,
Yeah.
not really with like face full done.
Yeah.
But now
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be camera ready
No,
on a Monday.
This is
On a
real.
Monday.
This is a podcast for real church people.
Yeah, I know. But if my face is going to exist on the internet for all of time, I'm not going to not wear makeup to work.
Well, here's what just happened to me. I've never told this story before. I was getting ready for the podcast, was just like super excited, was like, all right, we're back after a year. I've been waiting a long time for this. I'm excited. We're going to be on camera. Maron and Barry are here. Everything is right with the world. And I'm walking across the lobby to come up to this new video studio. And Ryan Mickens, who is the head of our production, goes, is that what you're wearing for the podcast today? I'm like, yeah, it is. He's like, you usually look nicer
Wow.
when you come to work. So I am camera ready, but apparently not enough.
I heard that whole interaction go down.
Yeah.
You were roasted, and it
I
was
was
merciless.
roasted right for no reason.
Merciless. No mercy, Ryan Mickens.
You look fine.
But
you look
in
fine.
his defense, you do usually have a few more patterns on than what we are seeing from you today.
This is my athleisure.
You're usually a little more vibrant.
You
Yeah.
do kind of blend in with that the brick background behind you.
Between two ferns.
Oh my goodness. Oh. Anyways, Barry, how you feeling about being on camera? You excited? You ready?
Born for this.
Yeah.
Did you wear a special shirt for this
No,
day?
I forgot. I just put on one of my 5.
Oh, man.
All right. So, guys, we've been gone for 13 months. Tell me roughly one thing. Roughly.
Roughly one.
Roughly what?
That friends of the pod may not know about 2023 in your life. Maron, Go.
Okay. I'll pretend like I didn't say this the first time we recorded this podcast 10 minutes ago.
I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought I could choose a new thing, but I'll stick
go
with
ahead.
the first thing.
No, go ahead.
Okay, well,
Stick
you
with
said
the first thing. People want to know.
you said roughly,
Let's
so
go
I'm going
for
to give
it.
you roughly.
Here we go.
My husband,
Don't be like that guy.
my husband and I traveled outside of the country for the first time as a married couple
Yes,
Wow.
you
for our
did.
20th wedding anniversary.
How was it?
We
Where'd you
went
go?
to Mexico. Remember that? Do you
Hey,
remember
yeah, I
that?
I do
That
remember
was-
that. Yeah.
That
was a long
happened.
time
You
ago.
guys are my friends. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like you were there. You know,
No,
Not
we
in
weren't
Mexico.
there. We didn't go with you.
I was sending you updates.
We were there in the
Especially
moment.
of
Yeah.
the flight because that was like Jed's first international flight.
Yeah.
That's
ever.
right.
That's right.
That's
and
right.
he was super excited about it.
Nervous.
So that was
Oh.
fun. And then a couple months later, my youngest, my daughter, graduated high school.
It's insane.
So the last time we recorded a podcast, I had two,
Children.
littles at home.
Yeah.
And now I have two grown adults.
Yeah, there are
And they've-
4 adults in your house right now.
I was
There are
gonna say,
4
they've flown the coop.
They
They've
have-
gone. They've moved off.
By no means have they flown the coop.
What's it like having that many grown-ups in the same house? Like, are they like, Mom, get off my back? Or are they like,
No. I think we have a really good working relationship. Here's where all of the problems exist. They
Jed?
most of the problems exist in my refrigerator because
sure.
4 adults are eating like 4 independent
Do they
adults.
contribute to the food budget?
Not so much. Like they will buy what they are into. Desi's into a lot of crazy stuff, and she used to work at Sarga, the international food store.
Oh,
so she
so
does
just
go
bringing
down there
home
and bring
weird
home
stuff.
all kinds of stuff I don't know what to do with. But it's that we have a normal
Yeah.
family size fridge, but really each adult in our home is at that point where they should have their own apartment
Kitchen.
and kitchen
Yeah.
and fridge. Right. So stuff keeps showing up like
Yeah.
a Hello Kitty goblet.
No.
Like a Hello Kitty plate goblet? I'm not kidding.
Is that going up
and
on
I'm
the
like,
wall?
where did this Hello Kitty goblet come from? There's no room for this in my cabinet. I don't want this in my home. We're at the point where each adult
We have 4
child,
adults in the house.
Why did Jed buy a
Hello Kitty
goblet?
they need
Doesn't
they need
compute.
like a hope chest, where you tuck things away for when you journey off onto your own to start your own
Yeah.
life and stop bringing that stuff into my
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah.
And I did tell you, I am nervous that the kids are going to
Yeah.
watch this now that it's on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah. Maron is, she's very anti, well, she said she's going to be more reserved.
I gotta be
she's,
careful.
She's going to be more reserved
Because
than what
there was
she
no
used to
chance
be.
they were ever going to listen to an audio
Yeah.
podcast.
They were not going to seek it out. No,
Oh,
they were
see.
not going to go find it. But if it's on YouTube,
YouTube
it's
and our
easy.
social media.
it's more
is-
appealing to
Yeah,
the
she's
youth,
she's gonna.
which means they might watch it. And
But
she's
what-
going to hear me
what
calling
did-
her
what
out for
would you
her
have
Hello
said?
Kitty
Yeah.
goblet. Get it out of my kitchen.
What else could you possibly say?
You've never
That-
said anything that would possibly embarrass
Yeah,
them
what-
ever.
I have wondered, when God calls me home, are my
What?
kids going to miss me
They're
so
gonna be
much
waiting, like,
and then comb through the episodes
Yeah.
and be like, what in the world?
Why would
was
she
the
say
worst
that?
parent.
Yeah.
Why would she ever?
yeah.
Anyway, that's what it's like.
Oh man,
That's
All
what
right.
that's what a 6 on the Enneagram thinks about when God calls me home. Are my kids going to listen to my old podcast episodes?
That's exactly what I think about. Barry, I feel very understood by you.
Good.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Oh,
Barry,
man.
what happened in 2023 with you?
I mean, lots of stuff.
Just one,
2 things.
2 things.
Two
All right.
things. When
Yeah,
they
2
both
things.
fall into the category of our farm or my home. One of them is just the plants. I got to do some cool stuff that I've been wanting to do.
You're a grown-up boy.
I am a grown-up boy. I grew a ton of stuff from seed, which I'm finally getting better and better at. I made chili flakes, like hot Thai red chili
Yeah.
flakes, which I've been using on a lot of stuff. They're great. I made my own fermented red jalapeno sriracha sauce.
How did it compare? Because
I didn't-
sriracha is a hard thing to duplicate.
I didn't ferment it exactly right, but I got a step in the right direction. I'll do more of this next year, and it'll be great. You'd know the difference, but it was delicious. I use it. I still eat it a lot. And I made salsa, which was all ingredients, like a chunky salsa, and it was all ingredients that I grew from seed, including the garlic and the onion, like all of it. And it was delicious. So I was
There
very
used to be a
excited about
time where Dave Rodriguez would preach, and there was one that people remember
Yeah.
for the ages.
He
where
made hummus.
He made hummus while preaching.
that. Yeah.
Would you ever consider making chunky salsa while?
Does anybody really want to watch me like cutting up jalapenos and then touching my eye by accident? And
Yeah, man.
Memorable.
yeah, your loins. So anyway, that was fun. I did a lot of growing stuff. This next year will be fun too. I'm going to be trying out things like potatoes and anyway, more staples, and I'm going to try flour corn. Ooh, you're going to get excited about this.
What?
I'm going to try growing, there's like sweet corn and there's like flour corn.
Okay.
I'm going to grow flour corn, and it's this like particular species of like belong to the Hopi people, and it's like a purple corn.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that, and I'm going to get the lime stuff that you get to make masa, and then I'm going to make like purple flour
What?
tortillas,
Don't
corn
act like you're a big
tortillas.
shot.
Mixed tomal.
Yeah.
What's special about purple corn?
So I watched a documentary about corn once.
Oh, never mind.
This is why the people tune in.
Never mind.
There's all these corn varietals that like the native
Yeah.
peoples used to grow.
Yeah.
That some are just like extinct forever. Some are just gone, lost to time. But like we grow up just thinking corn is yellow.
Yeah,
Not so. Not so.
but what? I mean,
I don't know if that's because it's purple, but this particular kind supposedly has more protein in
Okay,
it than
so
others.
that's
I don't
it.
know.
Different
is it
flavor
like
profiles.
less sweet or something?
Who knows?
I don't know because I grew up with yellow corn
Yeah.
in a can.
That'll be for this. That'll be for
No,
this
I'm
next
not.
year. We'll talk about it. We'll learn together about purple Hopi corn. Anyway, but the other big thing is animals. This year we ended up adopting rescue hens, which people have been asking me like, what's a rescue chicken? There was a factory farm. Like for egg laying factory farm, where they're kind of just in like a little tiny cage their whole life and just making eggs day after day. And they wanted to get rid of a bunch of their older hens, and they thought, well, rather than, I'm not sure, the owner was like, rather than just slaughtering them all, why don't we see if anybody wants to like adopt them? And so this local, it was down in Bloomington, this local animal rescue said, yeah, we'll take hundreds of, maybe 1,000 of them, and started doing an all call to people who wants to come and adopt these hens. And so Liv saw that and said, we're doing it because we have this huge setup for our hens and we were ready for it. So she drove down to Bloomington to get 5 hens and came back with 7. And so we've had these 7 girls. God rules. And these 7 girls that had basically never, as far as I know, never seen sunlight, never seen grass. They're literally living in paradise now.
You posted a video the other day of them like seeing snow for the first time.
Yeah,
right.
They were all very confused.
Yeah, it's very confusing, and they're like tiptoeing through it. It's pretty funny.
It's cute. Anyway, so they're it's delightful, and they're so friendly, and they're so amazing, and so
Were they like immediately welcomed into the group by the
no,
OGs?
we had to do a
OG
bit
hens?
of a. There is no. That's a good question. We had to do a bit of a introductory period, but we were surprised at how quickly they all got along. But they first did their own thing. They would be like 2 little flocks. They'd both be in the same space, but each kind of separate. And now they're all mixed in together.
Still only one rooster.
Just Chester. Chester, I'm my little toxically masculine guy. He's still attacks me, but anyway. But now he's got a whole bunch more girls to watch out for, and the new girls, they don't have any fear. These girls from the factory, and so they will wander off. Like they'll come down back to the front yard of our house. Like they're everywhere.
Wow.
And so Chester's trying to keep track of all these girls, and poor guy's all stressed out because like they're all going off in different directions. He's doing his best, but the other big thing with animals, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that we officially named and officially launched an animal sanctuary called Haven Farm Animal Sanctuary, which is essentially just our way of naming what we do with the animals that we rescue and try to give people opportunities in the future to support financially. If we want to get a new rescue alpaca, people can come help us out with that or whatever. And we'll have some volunteer opportunities and things like that. So that's been pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
So wait, if people want to support that, what happens? What do we do if we want to support that?
Well, there's a website, Haven Farm Sanctuary. Just Google it and Google Haven Farm Sanctuary.
I was like throwing you a softball
that
here.
Would have been a softball, but it's so new. I'm still figuring that out. But we've got like an Instagram account and all of that. This is kind of a sweet thing though, real quick. We lost our very first animal just a few weeks ago, Humphrey, our very first adopted rabbit, who just changed our entire mindset, our entire world. He changed just how we think about animals, et cetera, and is kind of the reason why we even would have an animal sanctuary in the first place. And just odd timing, but we launched the animal sanctuary and then he passed away like a week and a half after that. And so it's kind of interesting to think of all these other creatures that are now living in paradise because of what he did to change us. So anyway, so that's what's been going on.
All right.
Is Humphrey the one who like flopped?
For that sermon? I
sermon?
used, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we saw a lot of Humphrey back in the day.
Because he was like our whole world at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. This one's for Humphrey.
Yeah. This one, this podcast.
Love him and miss him.
Yeah. So last time we did a podcast, I had 2 children. And
how many are you up to now?
We are up to 3 now.
Wow.
We had our daughter in April, Lou, and she's a Cabbage Patch baby.
She's a doll.
She's cute.
She has I call it the National Strategic Cheek Reserve.
Yeah.
She's got just the biggest cheeks.
We sent our Christmas card out being like, hey, Merry Christmas from the Benders, and nobody notices anything other than Lou.
Yeah.
She's the
steals the
center
show.
of attention. Yeah. So that's new. I'm now like take your kid to school, dad mode every day. I'm taking Milo to kindergarten.
Wow.
And so we've entered into gets home from school and I'm like, hey man, what'd you do? How was school? Fine.
Yes.
We've like that's the stage we're in. What'd you do? It has. Isn't it way too early for that?
In kindergarten.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, what'd you do at school today? Did you learn? I don't know, math. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
You got to ask strategic questions.
Like what?
Not like big open-ended.
See, it's been a year. I don't have any like help.
Yeah, you got to get some podcast parenting
That's
advice.
why we started this back up. Just to help you with your parenting.
Yeah. So every morning is like a battle of like trying to get him out of bed and brush his teeth the right way and brush his teeth long enough. And no, you can't wear that. You wore that yesterday. And no, you can't. Like, do you want to do your hair? Like, it's just nonstop that. So
from everything I've heard from people who have kids, it only gets better.
Yeah.
Right? And easier.
Yeah. Maron, the first time we
That's a
recorded this, said you were grateful to live vicariously through that.
I want to live vicariously through you and your stories of your adorable small
when
children.
When you're in it, you're like,
Those
this
are
is the worst.
Good old days by comparison, I promise.
Yeah. It doesn't, part of it feels that way because you're like, all right, I get quality time with Milo on the way to school every day. That's going to be great.
When Lane is sick, do you snuggle him? Do you snuggle?
Yeah, we do.
Ask me when the last time I snuggled Jaden was.
I doubt it. I bet you guys snuggle when he's sick.
No, he wasn't a snuggler past like 7.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah.
It's the good old days.
Yeah. So Lane's a force to be reckoned with. He is about to turn 4 and he was 2 last time we did a podcast.
Wow.
And so he's a force to be reckoned with. He's not in school or anything, but he will take the world by storm once he is in school. Oh, but I said this last time, but I've officially entered the phase where it's like, hey man, what's new? And I'm like, here's a story about one of my kids. Like I don't have
it's your world now.
Yeah, it's my world.
Keep them coming.
I don't have like
chicken
stories about myself.
Kid stories, adult kid stories.
Yeah, friends of the pod know what they're coming for. They know what they're here for.
Oh, and what they're here for is not this, guys.
Yeah, right.
What they're here for is the meat of the podcast, and that is to discuss a sermon every week at Grace Church. And each week we ask, "What's the big idea? What's the big idea?" And we invite people who have given the message at Grace, and that just so happens to be you this time.
Most of the time.
And we talk to them we ask questions about the sermon, what it meant to us. Can we go a little bit deeper? And so that's the heart of this podcast for anybody who's new or may have not listened for a while. And so I want to do that. But first, we're entering into a new sermon series, and we're in week 1 of that, and that's called Virtual Reality. And so to start a new year, we're starting a new sermon series. And Barry, can you kind of give us the synopsis of why we wanted to start the year with a sermon series about technology and called Virtual Reality?
Sure. Yeah, so the series is my attempt to acknowledge the fact that we are living in very, very unique times. People overuse the phrase unprecedented, but it is kind of unprecedented. Like I mentioned in my message, like we're all around 40 years old. Maron's 41. We're both 40, almost 41. And in our lifetime alone, things have massively changed with technology. Yeah. Like we grew up in a world where you were not reachable all the time, and you were not, you didn't have access to all human knowledge in your pocket. Like things have really, really, really changed, and really, really quickly. And so my conviction is that in a time of great seismic change like this, the church cannot just sit idly by, nor can we just let all of these changes just chew us up and make us look exactly like everyone else in the world. Like, we really should be distinct in the way that we handle and approach technology. And so that's what the series is going to be about.
Okay. And so week 1, I think it's a 4-week series? 5-week series. So week 1, it usually is kind of like, here's the overview of what we're going to learn in the next couple weeks. And so give us kind of the big idea or what you wanted us to take away from week 1 of this.
Sure.
This series.
So the way the series works is we have these 5 principles that'll be kind of like principles for Christ followers engaging the digital world. And the first principle is kind of the most overarching principle, which is pretty simple. You are on a mission. You are on a mission. And so the big idea is essentially, we as followers of Jesus are not, like I said, not just called to just sit around and be chewed up by the world. We're not called to withdraw from the world that we live in. We are called to go into the filth,
I may be in the world, but I'm not of it.
There it is. We are called to go into the world and be a transformative influence in the world that we're a part of. And in our case, that's a rapidly changing digital world. We're called to go into it.
Yeah.
And so we got to figure out how.
Maron, when we first started this podcast, you were hesitant to rapidly go into navigating Netflix.
Oh, you mean like years ago?
Yeah, years ago.
First
season 1.
When this podcast launched?
Season 1. Yeah, you were like...
You didn't know that there was a Netflix button on
Correct.
your remote, right?
Yeah.
That was the new
So when he talks about rapidly evolving technology and digital revolution, like, how do you feel?
Okay, so it's a love-hate relationship, mostly hate. I'm raising kids. I guess they're grown now, but I have raised kids throughout this digital revolution, and that has been incredibly challenging. I can't tell you how many times I've fantasized about taking a hammer to my kid's phone.
Yeah.
Kids are asking for phones younger and younger, wanting this technology, the sum of all human knowledge.
My 6-year-old literally said, "Can I have a phone?"
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was like, "You don't even know what that means. You just think there's games on it."
So we didn't get our kids phones until they were in junior high, and that's because both my husband and I had jobs that didn't allow us to be home when they got home from school, and we wanted them to have a way to reach us if they needed to reach us. But anyway, since then, and that would have been, junior high, they got their first phones. It's just been this ongoing climb of, it's like you're climbing a jungle mountain. It's like hard enough to climb a mountain, but then there are jungle things in the way. And how do you navigate
vines?
How do you navigate social media with kids? How do you navigate giving them access to the whole world in the palm of their hand? How do you find things that will help filter out some of the evil that wants to try to get to them through the palm of their hand? It's been incredibly challenging, and especially in light of, my husband and I are the same age. He's 41, I'm 41. Things were not this way when we were growing up.
Right.
I just watched a Hulu docu-series about the 90s. And one of the interesting episodes talked about television in the 90s and how NBC, I think, had the must-see TV. And it was the night where every cool show was on that you didn't want to miss.
Everybody's watching. Yeah.
And you felt like you had to watch it when it aired, right? You couldn't go back. You couldn't go back and watch it later. And if you didn't watch it when it aired, you wouldn't have something to talk with your friends about at school the next day or at work the next day or whatever. Yeah. So people would gather. And I even remember people having the show 24 or whatever, having watch parties.
Of course. That was a new invention. Yeah.
But now a snapshot of my home, whatever I choose to watch, if I'm watching TV while I'm eating dinner, one kid will grab their computer, go to the dining room, set themselves up and watch something else different while somebody else is upstairs on their phone watching something else. We have less and less time to be together, engaging in the same, even media.
Yeah.
And you mentioned at the top of your sermon, we're more isolated than ever.
Right.
And that's part of it. It's a byproduct of all of
we're
that.
We're also, we're more isolated than ever, and we're more connected than ever in weird new ways. Like if you're into... I don't know, handmade pirate bandanas, there's a community for you. There's people, you can find people that have exactly your thing somewhere in the world. And yet face-to-face interaction, actually physical touch with other people is getting less and less and less frequent. And we'll get into this in a few more weeks, but physiologically, that's a major red flag because we are We are actually biologically designed to have in-person like interactions with other humans. And so, it's causing all kinds of unexpected problems to our lives and world.
So when we talk about technology, are we talking exclusively about like social media and connectivity? Or are we talking about like smart air fryers? Like, what are we talking about?
I would say yes. Yes and yes. We're talking about all of it. I also think we're talking about some aspects of technology that we don't even think about the fact that this has changed our lives. Like the way that we interact with our world, the way that we do certain things. Like, I don't know, if you're buying a new car or a used car, it used to be you'd go to several used car dealerships, walk around, take a look at some of the ones you liked, and then made a decision. I guess this is the one I'll get or the one I can afford. Now, what do? You go online, you look at Kelley Blue Book, you find you pick what exactly you're looking for, and then you go and you look at the car that you're already planning to buy. And it's like things like that, which I don't know that is a very significant one, but it's those types of things that just shift the way that we think, the way that we interact with our world. And TikTok and Facebook and all that stuff that are so obvious. It's all, to me, it's all part of the digital revolution.
I feel old school because I still go to the grocery store. Like how many people have their groceries delivered right to their front door?
Yeah. And COVID accelerated so much of it because we were forced away from each other. And so new things became commonplace that even then were already just beginning. So
my sisters are 5 and 6 years younger than I am, and they think I'm crazy for going into Target or Walmart because they just do pickup all the time. All the time.
Wow.
So you mentioned it when you told us the big idea. You said, we're talking about principles.
Yeah.
Because obviously the Bible doesn't talk about what do you do when somebody's being mean or like
on Instagram.
Right. And so, how do you see the biblical principles like informing our engagement with technology explicitly? Is that something that we'll discover over the next few weeks, or is there something you can share?
Well, I could even give you all the principles right now if you wanted them, but basically, yes. All right. Well, the basic idea, and I mentioned this in the message, why would we be looking at the Bible for principles about technology? Because they didn't like,
right.
And I said that the highest technology was the plow. That was not being fair to the ancient Greco-Roman culture that had really amazing.
Thank you for saying that, Barry.
I know. They had aqueducts.
Maron was very upset.
They were getting into advanced metallurgy. I know you were upset about that, Maron.
Me and many others. So thank you.
Anyway, but it was the point that I made though is that technology always changes, but human nature doesn't, and the human experience doesn't. So even though our world looks indistinguishable, looks completely different than the ancient world, the realities of our engagement with the broken world don't. Those are the same. And so the principles are basically this. Then there's the first one, you were on a mission, which we'll, I assume, get into a bit more here in a second. But the second principle that we'll talk about next week is garbage in, garbage out. It's the way of talking about the things that we choose to set our minds on, to things that we choose to dwell on or feed into our consciousness. And in our case, a lot of that is based on what the algorithms are feeding us, the things that make us outraged, the whatever, all the content that we're looking at, even the junk food of the mind kind of stuff, that will affect the way that we live, the people that we are, and the way that we actually engage with the broken world. And if we're on mission, we have to be very thoughtful about what we're feeding ourselves. That's week 2. Week 3 is Sabbath breaks chains. And we're going to talk about the fact that so much of our digital world is designed to enslave us and to force us to be captives to whatever these big companies want us to do or look at, or whatever. And so one of the best tools in our arsenal as followers of Christ is Sabbath, these intentional breaks that say, you're not the master of me, I am the master of you. And so we'll talk about that. Week 4 is, I'm blanking. Give me 2 seconds. Week 5 is we heal face to face. And so week 5 will be all about that need to recover the face-to-face interactions, the local community, even as we stay connected in the digital space. And then week 4, I just reworded it. It is, your likes do not define you. That's what how I worded it.
We just jumped to week 5 and then went back to week 4.
Yes,
week 4.
I'm tracking.
Week 4, likes do not define you. And that'll be talking a lot more about our identity and how we are, especially young people, because they're still forming their identity, but everybody is so shaped by the way that we are viewed online that it short circuits a lot of our identity, which is meant to be found in Christ. So we'll get there. There you go. That's probably more information than you want, but that's the series in a nutshell.
Good. Okay. So you a significant theme you acknowledged was that technology is awesome, except when it isn't, right?
Yeah, right.
Like it's great that we can get sushi delivered to our doorsteps, but it also contributes to harm, like
the polarization of society.
People's anxiety skyrockets, loneliness, societal division, like all this stuff. And so why, and we'll get into the takeaways here in a second, but why shouldn't everybody just quit? Like social media, like if there is such cause for harm, and like my wife this year was like, I'm off social media. I'm off. I'm done. And so she's completely withdrawn. She's like, why shouldn't we withdraw if all these bad things are happening?
Sure.
Why shouldn't we just get out?
Right. Well, there's an argument to be made for it, like as a society, as an entire society, maybe we should. Maybe there are some things that we should bail on now as an entire society. The reality, though, is that that's not really within our control.
Yeah.
It's beyond us. It's the world that we live in. And so the question becomes, what is our relationship then to that society? Do we withdraw? Do we move in? What do we transform it, et cetera? Those are the bigger questions. It'd be like someone in ancient Rome saying like, why can't like human society just decide that empires and wars are not a good thing?
Yeah.
Like, let's just stop those. It's like, well, that's not an option. We live in a world of empire and war. What do we do as followers of Christ in the midst of it? Do we move out to the desert? Do we try to transform the society, et cetera? So it's the same questions that they were asking back then, just different causes.
And so you said we are on mission. We are on a mission. And so what is that mission? What are we supposed to do? What should we be accepting as our mission?
So the main passage for the message is John 17, where Jesus is praying for his disciples right before the crucifixion. And so this is kind of like his final thoughts, kind of what's most on his heart right before he goes to the cross. And he has this beautiful prayer where he's praying that the disciples would be one, they'd be unified and all of that. But he prays specifically for them. He says, look, they're not of this world. They don't belong to this world, but I'm sending them into the world, just like I was sent into the world. And so I dwelled on that for a while in the message because growing up, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think of this, but growing up, I always heard that passage summarized as you've got the sound clip.
I may be in the world, but I'm not
of it, right? I'm in the world, but I'm not of it, which to me, I always interpreted as my job was to not be corrupted by the bad things of the world, which was like sinful humanity.
Yeah.
I should avoid all of that. So I was joking about how I wouldn't listen to secular music or hang out with too many non-Christians or watch R-rated movies because I'm in the world, but I'm not of it.
Yeah.
That was how I always heard it. Did you guys grow up like that? Or at least hearing it that way?
I texted my family when you said that.
Yeah.
Because we're a lot more worldly than you, apparently.
You were in the world and of the world.
Very worldly people. No, I definitely heard that phrase all growing up. You know, it's funny talking about it now. I can remember it. It's in a Stevie Wonder song. Do you know that?
No, really?
From like the 70s.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. In the world, not of it. But it's in the song, it's kind of criticizing that notion because saying that you're in the world but not of it is a way to dismiss yourself from any responsibility of the world. You know,
there we go.
Right.
Stevie Wonder and I are on the same page on that one. Yes,
right. He was warning people of the dangers of that phrase. But no, I did grow up with that phrase, and I guess I don't even know how.
From what I know of your upbringing, though, Maron, I guess that more of what you would have heard would have been more in the missional stream than
for sure,
than like someone in a suburban evangelical setting like me.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I get tongue tied because on one hand, I did have like secular music was outlawed for me as a child between the ages of like 12 and 17 when I went and bought my first Leonard Skinner album. That's true story. Right. Rebellion. In the form of Neil Young and Leonard Skinner. but yeah, so I did kind of have a stringent upbringing in that regard, but I also had I had parents who were in a metal band because they wanted to go into the world and kind of redeem that for Christ. Right. And so it wasn't like avoid rock music altogether. Sure. It wasn't that, but it was like, hey, we don't want you being influenced by bands like Rage Against the Machine.
Oh yeah, Rage Against the Machine. Yeah.
Who we kind of love. But anyway.
For me, it was like, I never really heard anything until I became kind of a go to church kind of kid, like, which was in high school. And I started working at Moody Bookstore, and I just remember like Switchfoot, the band.
Oh yeah.
Like they had a song in a movie, Dare You to Move.
It's a good song.
Oh yeah. I remember
and
that.
everybody was like, get them out. They're of the world now.
Oh really?
They're part of Hollywood.
They weren't proud of the fact that they made a Christian band.
They sold out. They sold out.
They sold out, but not just sold out. They are secular, and we got to get them out. And
so that is not at all what happened to Switchfoot in my world.
That's what happened in my world.
They were championed in my world.
We're not selling the CDs anymore. Get them out.
Wow. Yeah. All that to say, that has been, for me at least, that was my upbringing. That was the way that I thought of it. And what my big point in the message was, that's not actually what Jesus says here at all. Literally, he says, you are not of the world. True. You are sent into it as my followers. Like I'm sending you in just as I was sent in. And so I asked the question, what does it mean? Like you asked the question, what does it mean to be sent into the world?
Yeah.
And I took us back to John 3. So actually, Nick Peace said, he saw me today. He's like, hey, this is starting the year on a great note. You had John 3:16, Oliver Twist, and cocaine in your first message. So,
unbelievable.
Anyway, John 3:17 says that God sent his son into the world, same phrase, not to judge the world, aka to condemn the world. That word means both things, but to save it. And so we are sent into the world, not to judge it or condemn it, but to save it, which is a really different thing than stop selling Switchfoot CDs at Moody Bookstore, right? Yeah. So that was my twist, that we've been saying this phrase wrong this whole time. It's into the world, not of the world. So there is that aspect where we do need to find a way to remain holy and set apart, because we should not look identical to everyone else around. We should live in such a way that our lives are distinct from the world. Yeah. However, our posture, I believe, should be one of intentionality and mission, moving in to transform the world around us, not just withdrawing and shrugging our shoulders and saying, man, sure don't like that TikTok stuff or whatever. You know, like we got to find a way. And the thing that we haven't talked about Victorian England yet. That was my major operating metaphor was the idea of the Industrial Revolution transforming Victorian England in like Charles Dickens and all the orphans on the streets and the smog in the air. And like, it was a terrible time. And like I said, they were putting cocaine in the cough medicine, like 4-year-olds in coal mines. Like it was like ridiculous extremes. And they had some good new technology, but it was chewing up people in the process. And I think that's the stage that we are in with the digital revolution. Like we are still putting 4-year-olds in coal mines. It's just called giving, teenagers social media accounts. It's called, allowing 7-year-olds to have access to all human knowledge. Like it's that kind of thing where we are not as a society ready for the changes that these technologies are
the technology is outpacing us.
Exactly. Just like it was when they had, locomotives running over people who didn't know that they go fast. Like it was like society needed time to transition. And so I asked the question, what would it have looked like had the church been on mission in that time, willing to move into the filth, to adopt the orphans, to even to start businesses that were focused on helping society and not just profiting off of it. Like the church missed their opportunity. And so that I don't want us to miss ours.
So you kind of gave 3 choices.
Sure.
One was get chewed up by it. 2 was withdraw. Withdraw. And then 3 was to accept the mission, like be on mission and accept the mission. And as I'm listening to you say this, I'm trying to put myself like, which one am I doing? And I wonder which one this is, because I was like, man, I just want to see like golf tips and like smoked meats. I don't need all the social media stuff. I don't need all that, but I do want to see golf tips and smoked meats. So am I withdraw? Is that a withdraw, or is that am I getting chewed up?
Right.
Because it doesn't really feel like I'm on mission. Like
Right.
how do I know if the answer to I'm on mission is true for me?
It's a good question. I tried to say it at the end of the message, which is like, this is uncharted territory. Like I don't have, we're going to cover a bunch of ideas in this series, but I don't have like a playbook for how does the church transform the digital world. Like this is new. We're the first people to ever have to ask that question. So we're figuring this out together. I will say there are some questions you can ask about your use of technology. Like, does the way that the technology I use, does the way I use it make me more like Jesus or less like Jesus in some way?
Yeah, and I'm like probably less, but I still want to know about the stuff that I care about. So like,
well, sure. And so maybe like that, but that's a question to ask. Like, what would it look like to enjoy the benefits of all the information about smoked meats that you could possibly want without becoming less like Jesus? There's got to be a way, with all the same thing about the way that the technology that we use influences like how we shape the world. We're posting things, we're interacting with things, we're feeding into economic systems with the way we use technology. Are we in our actions with technology making the world more like the kingdom of God or less? And those are the kinds of evaluation questions that, again, I don't have like some miraculous list of solutions for, and this is how we should be doing it. I just think this is an important time for us to be asking those questions.
Yeah, it's about asking yourself the question. I don't think that it's prescriptive.
Right.
I don't think that in the same way that like some are apostles and prophets and evangelists and pastors and teachers, I think we'll probably engage with technology differently, depending even on like our spiritual gifting and what we're called to do. There are probably some who are going to go in and be like, they're going to use technology for evangelism. Right. But others of us might just use technology to live out a quiet life. And just let people see Jesus in you in a different way. Like I don't think that everybody is going to use social media as an evangelistic tool.
Agreed. But
it's kind of between you and God, right?
Yeah.
Like if your wife wants to take a break from social media, that doesn't make her any less on mission.
Yeah.
Her mission might be different. Right.
And Sabbath breaks chains. We should be very, very comfortable and used to taking breaks from things that might addict us. I also think when it comes to like social media, I mentioned this, for example, like what would it look like to use Facebook as a way to build bridges, not to sow more division and hate? Like there's a real easy one. Does the way that you use Facebook sow division and hate? Or does it build bridges? Or vice versa? If you think about what you're seeing, garbage in, garbage out, is the stuff that you're seeing on TikTok making you more loving and kind and peaceful and generous and self-controlled? Or is it making you more angry and frustrated and vitriolic and hate-filled? And like that's the kind of thing I want us to be thinking about.
Yeah.
So, and I think there are ways that we can begin to use technology to do what is right, to do what is going to transform this world. We have the opportunity to start navigating that.
Can I tell you how TikTok did that for me this weekend?
Let's hear it. I'm very curious.
Okay. I have a friend I haven't seen in a long time. And this friend used to go to Grace. Now they go somewhere else. And we're still friends, but we haven't really gotten together. And it's been nearly a year. So we just kind of fell off of each other's radar, I guess, in a way. But then there was a TikTok recipe for like a tart, okay? Made from puff pastry and shallot and goat cheese and honey and thyme.
Ooh, I want that right now.
Believe God!
Exactly. I was like, okay, so TikTok, right?
Yeah.
You're coming to my house. We're going to make this TikTok recipe and we're just going to catch up on everything.
Love that.
That tart is delicious and I would recommend it to anyone. And maybe, at some point, just reach out to me. I'll share the TikTok video with you. But that was the thing. That was the thing that like brought someone to my house for dinner.
Yes.
And we used it for community.
Yeah.
Had dinner at my kitchen table. It was just a lovely evening.
That's beautiful because what you're doing, you're letting the spark of an idea from technology that you would not have gotten otherwise.
Look at you.
Well, you could do it with smoked meats.
Yeah, I could.
Waiting for my invite.
But that's brilliant because it led to a face-to-face connection.
Right.
And true community like that. That's exactly
right.
That's exactly what we're talking about. That's brilliant.
There's a scripture that came to my mind while you were preaching the message, and I want to read it. It's and forgive me if I'm stealing it from a future week since we are only in week 1. Romans 13. I used to love this scripture as a kid.
New King James.
I'll read it from the NLT for your sakes. Romans 13:12. The night is almost gone. The day of salvation will soon be here. So remove your dark deeds like dirty clothes and put on the shining armor of right living. Because we belong to the day. We must live decent lives for all to see. And I'll pause there. I feel like that's how the majority of us who call ourselves Christ followers would think or say that we use social media. We want to live decent lives for all to see.
Sure.
This could be the Bible making a case for us going into the digital world to live decent lives for all to see. Then it goes on. Don't participate in the darkness of wild parties. Now, some of these were real easy to write off, okay, wild parties. I don't struggle with that. Don't participate in the darkness of wild parties and drunkenness or in sexual promiscuity and immoral living. Piece of cake. Got it. Or in quarreling and jealousy. The quarreling word is what really stuck out. Because while we are out there trying to live decent lives for all to see, and it's pretty easy for us to avoid wild parties and promiscuity and immoral living, the quarreling part has tripped us up.
Oh, yeah.
As a church, big time. And so, instead, clothe yourself with the presence of the Lord Jesus Christ, and don't let yourself think about ways to indulge your evil desires. So what does it mean, and what would it look like to bring the presence of Jesus Christ into the digital realm?
For all to see.
Yeah.
I love that line. Yeah. And I didn't really like zero in on this in John 17, but it's similar to what he says there. He said, may they be in us so that the world will believe that you sent me. We are living representations of God sending Christ into the world.
Yeah.
That's great. It wasn't part of the future message, but it should be.
There you go.
So I might add it.
All right. So you connected the negative impacts of technology on mental health and various groups of people. And so as Christians, how do we support people struggling with these issues? What if my final answer to your question is, I'm on mission. I'm in on that. I'm using tech for good, but my son isn't, or my daughter isn't, or my husband or wife or friend or neighbor isn't doing that. How do we support them? How do we help them discover the mission, I guess?
Sure. Well, that's a great question. That's something we'll be talking about in the next few weeks. I think if it's someone that's in your family, there are some things that we can do to help guide them. And in fact, we actually have provided a bunch of resources, and we didn't create them. There's some really amazing stuff out there on the website, gracechurch.us/technology. At the bottom of the page are all these links. Like one in particular that I'm passionate about is the Center for Humane Technology. They just have there's like a think tank that does incredible work. That you can look there for resources about how to talk to your kids about social media and what are some healthy limits to include for children at certain developmental stages. Like that kind of stuff you can do for those that are within your sphere of influence. For neighbors, for friends, like this is the uncharted territory that we need to talk about. How do you influence a neighbor who's being chewed up by their addiction to hate-filled social media? Like that's a good question. And what does it look like to live in such a way for them to see what the presence of Christ looks like? I mean, that's a big question. I do think there are certain activities that we're going to do, like the January 27th No Screen Saturday Challenge. Yeah. Which, if you're a parent, I mean, personally, if I was a parent, I'd be so looking forward to this, even though the kids are going to freak out and dread it. Like we did it last time. We talked about this topic, and people said it was a really beautiful day.
It really was. So Sunday, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Micah, who sings on the worship team, I call him my son. He's practically my family. He's not done a No Screen Saturday before. And so when you said it, he had a physical reaction of, to the thought of not having a screen for a whole day.
That's right.
Which was hilarious because he did that at 9:15. From my perch behind the keyboard at 11, I knew where you were going at the end of the message, and I looked over at my other son, Jaden, when you said No Screen Saturday, and he literally said, yes, because it was such a great experience as a family. And I love that, like, No Screen Saturday, he even remembered, he's like, we did it in the fall last time, right? he's like, oh, it might be a challenge this winter because there's less like outdoor opportunities.
He's
But
thinking through it.
He's already planning
Yeah.
those Green Saturday. I love it. For somebody who has done one already, to know that this is a cool day and we're looking forward to it. That was really cool.
Right. So as a family, I mean, you could, if you're a parent, you could own that and make it a great day and teach your kids there's great joy to be had outside of your device.
Micah said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, just come to my house.
Yeah.
Come over that day.
You'll be fine.
And I don't know if we have time to answer this question, and maybe there isn't an answer, but if we accept the mission, all right, I'm on mission. There's a whole other level as I think about digital revolution and technology. There's a whole other level of like what is actually happening out there, and it involves complex issues like morality and data integrity and ethics and AI ethics and digital equity.
Federal regulation of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and like people having access to technology equally, like that kind of thing. So I don't know if we're ever going to get to talk about that, but that's also kind of where my mind went. Is like, all right, I'm on mission. But there's a whole thing that like is trying to like is actively against me when it comes to technology. And so do I even have a chance to accomplish the mission?
Right. Good question. You both looked at me like I had an answer to that.
No, I think it depends on what your mission is.
Yeah.
Like where your head went with it is not where my head went with it.
You didn't think about AI ethics?
No, sir. Not right away, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe by week 4, I'll be ready to talk about AI ethics.
Okay.
Right? But like it's easy to be overwhelmed by the mission if you think of it in such broad terms.
Yeah.
And then if you're overwhelmed, it's like, well, who am I? I'm just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
And then you throw it all away. And I think that's exactly what we're not trying to do with this series is make people feel overwhelmed by all of that.
To me, it rings bells of dealing with things like racism or sexism. It's like
justice.
Systemic issues that are completely baked into society that there's no individual that could possibly fix it. It is very tempting to throw up your hands and say, I guess there's nothing I could do. There are 2 things you can do. One of those is to control what goes on around you, to work in your world to transform it. And the other thing is to be a part of the conversation that's how democracy works. We together have a conversation as a society, which leads to change. And again, I'm going to keep bringing them up. The Center for Humane Technology, that's one of the big things they talk about. They would say that it's ridiculous to blame parents for kids having bad social media, like habits, because he's like, it's not the parents' fault. There's an entire system built on the attention economy, which it's like a couple of parents versus these like multi-billion-dollar algorithms that are designed to race to the bottom of your kid's brainstem. It's like you don't stand a chance as a parent. So what we need to be doing is collectively, as a society, having these conversations, collective action, like voting, like working through those kinds of things as a society, which is not as satisfying as saying, "Here's what I can do to fix the problem." They're both true. They both have to happen.
Yeah. Okay. That solves it.
Yeah, there we go.
Where do we go next? What are we doing?
So like I said, next week is all about garbage in, garbage out. And I'm really hopeful that we'll have some good conversation about the kinds of things that we are feeding into our minds. And I'm using, I don't know how deep I'll use this analogy, but I've thought a lot about the fact that, you know how like your gut bacteria responds and the different species of gut bacteria respond to what foods you eat. So if you eat a lot of leafy greens, the type of bacteria that love leafy greens proliferate. If you eat a ton of fats, sugars, and salts, the type of bacteria that thrive in that environment proliferate, and then they start to shape what you desire. Like the more leafy greens you eat, the more you're going to want to eat leafy greens because that's what your gut bacteria is telling your brain anyway. So it's similar. It's like the more that we give ourselves the fats, sugars, and salts of the digital world, the more that's what we're going to want. What does it look like to become healthier in our intake? I don't know. That's what we'll talk about.
Okay. And then you've got a couple other things you're doing.
Peripherally.
What talk about that for a
We're
second.
going to do a Twitch stream, which is like video game streaming. I'll be doing that. I did that a couple times during COVID, which is a lot of fun. It'll be like family friendly, so kids and students can watch. That's kind of the target audience. And I'll be partnering up with Danny and Randy from our student ministries, and we'll just be goofing off and talking a little bit about the realities of social media for kids and for students and kind of what that's like as we play a ridiculous fun game. And then we're also going to be screening the movie, The Social Dilemma, which I called it wrong at 11. I can't believe I said The Social Network, which is a Jesse Eisenberg movie about Facebook. So I hope people are not.
Justin Timberlake was in it.
I will clear that up. Yeah, I will clear that up this coming Sunday. But it's going to be the documentary, which actually was made by the guys from the Center for Humane Technology. So I don't know if you knew that, but they're the guys that did that. And so I'll be leading a discussion group there, and I think it'll be a really great conversation. No Screen Saturday, as I mentioned. And Between Sundays is back.
So the Social Dilemma screening, if you're attending Grace, is January 23rd. The Twitch stream is January 17th, and then the No Screen Saturday is the 27th.
And you can find all that information at gracechurch.us/technology.
That's right. All right, guys. First show in the books.
We did
First show of season 7 back in the books.
Made it.
We still got it.
We'll be back next week with for week 2. Go like and subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/gracechurchin, and we'll be looking for you there. But for now, Maron, do you remember how to do this?
I'm thinking.
Will you please send us out?
There it is. Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
And we'll see you on the other side of Sunday.